The Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings brought the issue of acquaintance rape to the forefront of America's consciousness. There's a misconception that all acquaintance rapes or attempted acquaintance rapes are mistakes performed by nice guys who learn from their mistakes and would never do it again. In the previous episode, David Lesak, a forensic expert in sexual assault and rape prevention, presented data inconsistent with that principle. In this episode, we will discuss the fear that an acquaintance rape victim experiences during an attack, the damage caused by acquaintance rape, and the reason that victims delay in reporting. Also, a message of hope. Welcome to PA Voter Information Network. This is Larry DeMarco, your host. Are you anxious about this upcoming election season? Well, I have a cure. Just click the subscription button on my YouTube channel and all your opponents are guaranteed bad luck. Dr. David Lesak discusses the impact of acquaintance rape on victims.
In 1992, there was a study that was released in the United States called the Rape in America study. And for the first time, they didn't just document the prevalence statistics and the incidence statistics. They asked a lot of questions of women who'd been raped. And one of the things they asked is, they were trying to get a sense of level of fear. And they found that, I can't remember what the exact percentage of it was over 40% of the victims said they were afraid they were going to be killed. And it floored us. I mean, literally, we looked at this and thought, there's something wrong here. Because we were still thinking about non-stranger sexual assaults as this completely different kind of assault. And it didn't make any sense that women would think they were going to be killed. There's no gun, there's no knife, there's oftentimes no overt violence. Why would these women think they were going to be killed? And it's just a marker of just how little we understood this phenomenon. When somebody you thought you knew, somebody from within your social network, somebody from, we all have generally a kind of a safe zone, right? And sometimes it's geographical, but very often that safe zone is interpersonal. So if it's in the Army, if it's somebody from your base, that's part of your safe zone. If it's somebody from your university, you're part of campus, that's part of your safe zone. And in fact, if you're at one of these parties or a bar and you're getting yourself somewhat intoxicated, voluntarily drinking, which makes you more vulnerable, you're doing that. I mean, would you do that if you were in the middle of some part of town where you didn't know anybody? I mean, no, you'd be a little bit more cautious. You're in a safe zone. So now somebody you meet in that context, never seen them before, but they seem like a pretty nice guy, and they're nice to kind of offer you drinks, buy you drinks. And then at some point in the evening, he says to you, I think you've had a little bit more to drink. I think you better let me take you home, okay? I don't want you to get in trouble and so forth. So, I stopped drinking a while. I'll get you home. And that confirms for you that this is somebody from your safe zone. In fact, this is somebody who is showing concern for you. And so you accept that offer. And he takes you home. And maybe to show your appreciation, you say, you want to come up and have a cup of coffee or whatever, and sure. And so you go up there. And maybe even things evolve to a little bit of, I don't know what kids call it these days, but foreplay, little whatever, right? So there's some messing around. And you're doing this consensually. Knowing that, that's about, there's a limit to what you're going to do tonight. And at some point, you reach that limit. And what is the first thing you do? Well, the first thing you do is not typically, okay, that's enough. The first thing typically is some kind of physical gesture. Closure of the body, a sort of a turning away of the body. And that might sound extremely subtle, but actually there's research, believe it or not, there's research on almost everything. There's research on this. And actually the research shows that people clearly understand these nonverbal cues. And yet the person doesn't stop. And so the next gesture is maybe a little bit more kind of clear. but still he doesn't stop. And so the next thing is maybe some kind of verbal, but it's actually not even verbal, it's a sound. So it's sort of like, Again, now this is even more clear, but still he doesn't stop. So finally there is some kind of verbal message like, no, stop, enough, and he doesn't stop. Somewhere in there, there is a second when this person realizes they're in real danger. Because everything you assumed about this person you're with, you now realize you were wrong. And this is a terrifying moment.
Assault victims are criticized for not reporting their assaults immediately, and the delay is used to impeach their credibility. Donald Trump scrutinized Christine Blasey Ford while being interviewed by Sean Hannity.
To see what's going on is just very, very sad. You say, why didn't somebody call the FBI 36 years ago?
Dr. Lisak explains that the failure to report a rape is not necessarily evidence that a rape didn't occur, but also could be evidence that a sexual predator took care in selecting his victim wisely.
Predatory behavior is the identification first of vulnerability. And actually there's a sequence to that. What predators do is they identify classes, groups of people who are more vulnerable than others. Predators study their prey. And that's why in so many of these cases, they have an advantage over us. Us meaning, I work with law enforcement in the United States. It's mostly what I do, and with prosecutors. And we're always up against people who have spent so much of their time figuring out how to find vulnerable people. And in fact, one of the ways they beat us is they pick on people who are just simply not going to report this. And so we don't even have a chance to go after them. They've beat us even before the game started, simply by picking people who are unlikely to come forward and report it.
Lawrence O'Donnell also responded to President Trump's comments.
That is what sexual assaulters are counting on, that they will never be reported. Thousands of them contain an identical line, word for word. No one would believe me. It keeps recurring as a haunting refrain as you read why I didn't report.
The statistics regarding acquaintance rape are depressing. 1 in 5 college-aged women are raped before they graduate. Only 16% of rapes and sexual assaults are reported to the police. 85% of rape victims know their attackers, and 30% of all survivors will contemplate suicide. As a result of the protesters who confronted Senator Jeff Flake, the senators pushed back the confirmation vote after a week for an FBI investigation. The investigation was so artificially restrictive in time and scope so as not to recover any material evidence, a glaring fact, especially in light of a Senate body willing to delay a confirmation process for 9 months if it fit their political agenda. So in the end, although the protest didn't have an effect on the ultimate issue of confirmation, a victory was still won. As a result of this delay process, a discussion has begun, which will never end, particularly in the younger generation who want better relations between the genders.
All this scandal with Kavanaugh has definitely been a big catalyst for especially what teenagers do at parties in mine. Amongst my guy friends, we've definitely talked a good bit about that.
Daniel, a 17-year-old senior from Connecticut, says the conversation isn't just with his friends, but with his parents.
I can remember my mom sort of telling me, you have to be careful what kind of situations you get yourself in.
Now a new conversation happening among America's teens between young men and young women.
When I sit down with my guy friends who are confused, who are doubting the legitimacy of these allegations, and I sort of explain to them in a face-to-face way, what this experience is like for young girls, they do open up their mind. They listen, they're open to hearing, what I have to say, what my friends have to say.
Still, some boys raise concerns about the potential for unforeseen consequences in this era of accountability, that men may be subject to a new measure of judgment.
There's certainly a little bit of a worry about someone falsely accusing me of doing something, years after the fact. That shouldn't, take precedence over the fact that, things like this happen to girls all the time.
False accusations might be a theoretical risk, but it's not an epidemic. The dangerous epidemic to societies and victims who don't stand up and speak out about their assaults. Failure to break the silence will allow serial predators to continue to victimize an entire female gender, which in the end affects us all as a society. However, based upon the students who appear to be learning, the courage of the people who are standing up in the Me Too movement, the activism of those protesters, and even politicians who are willing to listen, it appears that there is hope and we are moving in the right direction. If you like this episode, please subscribe to PA Voter Information Network. Forward this link to all the people on your contact list and social media friends. Click the like button and leave a comment. Signing off. Tune in next time. Bye for now.